Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about developments in the Luigi Mangione case, the man who shot the healthcare CEO in cold blood in the back in front of the Hilton Hotel in Midtown. Okay, now where things stood, he escaped and he was in another state. And so that means that state, Pennsylvania, needs to extradite him to New York. And New York has filed an application, extradite him, please. And the indications before were that Mangione was going to contest that. Now, what does that mean to contest extradition? Extradition is a pretty straightforward thing, especially whereas here there's a treaty between the two states that governs it. Extradition is simply a matter of the state that has him being shown to its satisfaction that he's the guy in the charge. New York says, we've charged him. Well, we've charged Luigi Mangione. Does that mean it's this guy in front of the judge in Pennsylvania? It does mean that. You'd have to prove it with surveillance, photos, and other things. But yes, he's the guy. And then second, the charge is legit. It's not some bogus made up thing, but it's, in this case, murder. On that basis, you would extradite. So he's going to be extradited. There's really no doubt about it. He could try to contest it, and his first indication from his lawyer in Pennsylvania before New York lawyer Karen Agnifilo took over was that he was going to contest it. Now it looks like he's going to waive it. And that means he's saying, yes, I admit it. I'm that guy. Yes, I agree. Murder is a bona fide charge. Go ahead and take me. Why would he do that when before he said he wasn't going to? Saves money. It's gonna cost to go through the legal proceedings. And some defense lawyers will tell their defendants, you've got to get your head around this and start really focusing. You've got your life on the line here, and you should go now to New York and start this process, and that should be your focus. And then some people think you kind of get a little bit of goodwill from the prosecutors if you don't make them go through the steps. To just double back, he first had some lawyer in Pennsylvania. His folks, it's known he was the valedictorian of the Gilman School, a prestigious private school, then went to Penn. His folks they certainly are means enough to hire a good private lawyer. That's Karen Agnifilo. And just a word or two on her. She was high up in the office. She was the second in command in what is now Bragg's office. And she's been in private practice for a while and is well respected. So your basic mindset here as a defense attorney pretty early on would be, am I pointing towards some kind of deal with the government, or am I pointing to go to trial and fight it? And that will sort of determine your strategy. It might even determine whom you hire if you're a defendant. But Karen Agnifilo will satisfy either role, and she's sophisticated enough to think, to try to have a strategy from the top, because the evidence here is overwhelming. He has no hope of beating the basic charges. And I think this will come down to some kind of mental status defense, either insanity, which would be if you can show it a reason for acquittal, for not guilty. But it's very hard under New York law. They use a strict insanity standard. Basically, you would need to show he didn't know the whole thing was wrong to murder him. And, there's a lot of evidence that he did. Or you can say if you can show extreme emotional disturbance, you can take a second-degree murder charge and bring it down to a first-degree manslaughter charge. And there's no previous. That usually comes up in cases where, for example, a spouse has been battered and has been, the victim has created this extreme emotional disturbance. In this case. No, he's had a lot of back pain, or maybe he's all overwrought because of his political views now about capitalism and the like. that can, in theory, qualify for extreme emotional disturbance. It doesn't have to be about the victim per se, but it makes it just clearly a weaker case. All right, and that now goes, that's changed anyway because of what's happened in New York over the last day. They began to convene a grand jury last week, and the grand jury has now returned charges of first-degree murder, and that's the headline from today. Under New York law, what we normally think of elsewhere as first-degree murder, that is, you planned it, you had what the law says, malice aforethought, cold blood, all that stuff. That's second-degree murder in New York, and it's subject to a 15 or 25 to life sentence. First-degree murder is reserved for cases in which that second-degree murder occurs and something else. For example, the killing of an officer, or for example, the killing and the perpetration of another felony. If you go down the list and consider it for Mangione, it's not, nothing seems like a compelling or no-brainer case for first-degree murder. And yet, this is a high-profile case, and it's clear that the NYPD, among others, have been in there trying to bend Alvin Bragg's ear to say, make this a first-degree murder case. Make this a first-degree murder case. And Bragg decided to do just that by asking the grand jury to return first-degree murder charges based on the one, I've talked about this in recent days, the one slightly plausible basis for elevating the second-degree charge, terrorism. So what they're going to need to show to make a first-degree murder charge out of this is that he did all the other stuff, and in addition, he did it to try to essentially terrorize the civilian population. You know, they will introduce his social media and other stuff. An interesting little detail that I reported on Blue Sky. It looks like he did a review on Goodreads of Ted Kaczynski's The Unabomber Manifesto, the one that was published in New York. So they will try to use his broader social platform and his apparently very strong anti-capitalist leanings, which, by the way, has gotten him a kind of perverse following, mainly on the left, of people. He's actually being lionized by some, which is, more evidence of the kind of woeful political landscape we're all in. But that kind of extremism, deep state, tear it down. There's a version of it that's also on the left. You see it here. Anyway, could that amount to terrorism? To me, it's a roll of the dice. And if you don't get first degree, if you do get first degree, the extreme emotional disturbance goes away, because it can only be used to convert a second degree murder charge down to manslaughter. But also, if you don't get it at trial, you can still charge a second degree murder charge. But I think the risk here, and it's not, they can still decide to drop this charge down the line, but it looks like they're committed to it. And the risk is it becomes the focus of the trial. It gives a real argument for the defense, a real issue on appeal for the defense. It's an open and shut case on second degree murder, but is this an act of terrorism? And I think it's a judgment call, and Bragg had a fair bit of heat to do it. Time will tell, but I think it makes the case more of an uphill climb than it needs to be. But that's the very interesting point. He'll now be extradited. First degree murder charges, no way he gets bail. And they'll begin to develop a case that not only the easy case that he shot him in the back in cold blood, that's him, that's his gun, etc., but also that it had to do with terrorism and basically striking fear into a broader population in support of his ideological kind of anti-capitalist thoughts. So that's what we'll be looking at as Mangione comes to trial, probably late next year. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.